Scott McNair, injury attorneys, we fight for the win.
All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Overruled podcast brought to you by the Scott McNair Law Firm. This is David McNair, and I am in the podcast studio with a very incredible guest, but also a close friend, basically a family member to me now, Mr. Andy Delaporte. Andy, welcome to the Overruled podcast.
Cheers.
And if you're listening and you can't see, Andy has got the distinction. He's getting miles drunk back there. He's got the distinction of the first guest. I'm going to take a sip here. Here we go. It is delicious. Andy brought an Italian. Tell us what you got here, Andy. It's an Italian Brunello. You're the first wine gifter to the podcast, so congrats. Episode 52, and you're the first.
I'm honored at that. We're drinking a 2017 Lecuse, Brunello di Montalcino.
Lecuse. And how many times have you been to that vineyard?
Twice.
And I've actually been there with you.
Yes.
In Italy.
That was actually, I think, the best wine tasting day I've ever had.
That one. Well, I think I had I was overserved the night before for that wine tasting day, and so my stomach was not on good terms with me, and so it was a great day.
I think wine was the first thing that hit our stomachs that day, wasn't it?
For sure. But it's just incredible to have you here, Andy, to talk a little bit about your career. The first thing I want to jump in, obviously, is as we drink this delicious Italian Brunello wine on a Friday afternoon here in New Orleans, how you got started in the media business. Currently, for those of our listeners who don't know, you are the director of sales for the local Fox affiliate, WVUE, local
Correct.
first. And why don't you take us back a little bit? How'd you get started in the media business? Like, how did you land in this particular position? Take us off from the beginning.
Well, it's funny. It's kind of an accident. I got out of college and looking for a job. My grandfather, I lived in New York, out on Long Island. My grandfather used to ride the train in with a guy named Phil Kirk, who was in the media business. And he got me an interview at an ad agency, and I got my first job as an assistant media buyer. Little outfit called Backer Spielvogel Bates. And so I was, learned about media, buying radio and television, and then at some point, my darling wife, Pam, and I decided let's get the hell out of New York before we get sucked in forever. So we threw everything we owned in the back of the car, drove out to Portland, Oregon, sight unseen. And the one experience I had as an assistant media buyer was that there's more money on the sales side. So when I moved out to Oregon, I got a job selling at a radio station, which led to, I sold radio for probably 10, 12 years. And that
in Portland?
In Portland. And then that led to my first job in television in Portland.
Why'd you go from TV to radio? Did you just prefer TV over radio? Were there things about radio you didn't care for?
It's interesting. I'm a radio guy at heart, but TV is definitely much more powerful, more impactful, sexier.
Yeah.
Got pictures.
And then what was your first job in TV in Portland? Were you in that same position the entire time? Or
I actually did the full run of management positions that you can do at a TV station. I started as national sales manager, then was local sales manager for a little while. Then I was the general sales manager, then the director of sales, and then my last job there was the vice president general manager of KPTV. It's a Fox affiliate in Portland. So
you go from New York to Portland, pretty big swing. And then you're like, if that's not a big enough swing, I'm going to end up down in New Orleans. How'd that happen?
Well, so as happens in the media business, and especially the company that I worked for in Portland, when I became the general manager, it just seemed like a matter of time till you get clipped in that position. So on one Friday morning, unceremoniously got shot in the back of the head, was out of a job, and I had a non-compete.
Figuratively speaking, of course. You
yes.
Otherwise wouldn't be talking to us. But,
I had a non-compete, so I couldn't work in Portland. So that left me to try to find somewhere else to work, and ended up in New Orleans based on that.
And I know, I think it's a good point to ask you this question. I've kind of glazed over this point with you a bit in the past and discussions about that transition of you moving from Portland to New Orleans. But would you agree that maybe, for our listeners, like, because, people get fired, people leave a job as they're not happy anymore, or they have negative things happen in their life, maybe not necessarily just in their job, but it's like, I'm a big believer in, like, not everything is happening to you, like it's happening for a reason. If you try to be more conscious of that and cognizant of that, you can kind of turn it into a more positive thing. So, like, looking back, Do you feel like that was a very good thing? Yes or no, and or why?
Oh, absolutely. The timing was as good for a move as it could be. My youngest daughter was a senior in high school, so when she was going off to college, we were going to be the proverbial empty nesters. So that afforded us the opportunity to go somewhere else. And, for me at that point in my life and career, it was about good company, good people, good culture, and then obviously a good market that Pam would move to. So I had somebody begging me to go to Lubbock, Texas, and there's no way Pam. Well, you know Pam. You see Pam in Lubbock, Texas? No.
I don't think Pammy would live in Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah. So as I told him, I said, you can't pay me enough money to go to Lubbock, Texas, and if you could, I'd be going as a divorced man. So that's not going to happen.
Or be flying out every weekend.
Yeah. So the opportunity came up in New Orleans, and it's just such a great, vibrant city. It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Love it. I can honestly say that I've been doing this for 30 years, and the 8+ years that I've been in New Orleans have been the most fulfilling of my career.
Awesome.
Hands down.
So you've been in New Orleans since 2017. Did you immediately start as the sales director of sales at Fox 8, and have you been in that role the entire time?
Yes. So I was hired on as the director of sales and been doing it for 8+ years now.
Tell our listeners a bit, what does that entail? It's like, okay, you're the director of sales for a TV station, but as I understand it, you're managing a bunch of salespeople and a lot of other stuff. So, what is that role? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the things you enjoy?
So I manage a team of 22 in my department, and that includes about 10, 11 sellers, support staff, other managers, and our job is to generate revenue for the TV station and the parent company, Great Media. And obviously our business has evolved a lot over the past several years, where in addition to the broadcast, we do a lot of digital elements, and then got a new thing this year where those of you Pelicans fans are watching the games on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. So that's falling under my jurisdiction from a revenue perspective as well. So always changing and evolving.
Yeah, it's not just TV, right? And I know this from speaking to some, not only you, but some of the other salespeople and executives at Fox, and just the nature of, and Gray, and just the nature of what we do because we advertise with y'all. That there's a lot of digital elements that maybe people don't understand also fall under your team's umbrella, like the stuff that you sell related to all the apps. You have a total digital division. How much has that developed since you've been there?
Oh, it's huge. That's part of our business that's exponentially growing, double digits every year. And yeah, we do a lot. I mean, in addition to our owned properties, which would be our apps and our website and our live stream of the news for people who watch on smart TVs through the Fox 8 app. And then in addition to that, there's a lot of external products that we can do, targeted email, connected TV, advertising. The gamut of digital products in our portfolio is just outstanding.
And you mentioned that you manage this team of 11 sellers who primary function or job is to generate revenue for the TV station and the parent company, right? How do you effectively manage a team of that many salespeople?
That's a great question. One, I think you need to be kind of compassionate and understanding. You got to listen to them, take feedback well, and most importantly, kind of set a clear vision and communicate it well to the team. I mean, I find that if people understand where we're going and why we're doing it, they're much more apt to buy in and have some skin in the game as well, versus just being told, do this. Yeah.
Explaining the why. I think that's just so important, and they want to know why, right? But besides all that, I always struggle with this thing where it's you think you say something one time and the point has been received, that they've heard it. But in our brains, it's hard to remind ourselves, that person could have been thinking about what's going on at home tonight, this issue that they need to make sure they make it for their haircut that's scheduled, and they miss what you said. And so it becomes this thing of communication is so important, because like how many times you feel frustrated, probably sometimes you're like, why do I have to repeat myself? Repeating yourself and communicating well is sometimes necessary. Don't you agree?
Did you read the email?
What do you believe in that vein, Andy? Because you've been around a ton of people in sales. I'm sure there's people listening to this who are in sales or want to go into sales or watching this. What are 2 or 3 of the main characteristics that you think embody somebody who's going to be effective at selling and a good salesperson?
So that's a great question, and that's one that
we got notes.
I'm going to go.
Not only do we have one, we got notes.
I'm going to go to the notes on that one.
Are they typed or are they handwritten? What are they?
They're typed.
Oh shit! Yeah. That's some serious preparation here.
Mm-hmm. I gave it a couple minutes thought before I came down. I think to be a good salesperson, you need to have a strong desire to win. It's also important for a salesperson to not be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to ask people to spend money with you, and you're going to get a lot of no's. So, when you get a no, that means you did something right. You asked for the order.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to fail, but then also, learn from your mistakes. Don't repeat them. Take everything as a kind of a teaching opportunity to better yourself and do a little self-analysis afterwards, like what could I have done differently.
How important do you believe, because I have a strong belief that the most important thing, even though I'm not really in sales, although I kind of am, I guess you say that's probably a stupid thing to say, I am in sales, that relationships are the center of all sales and all marketing. For us, at least at the firm, it's like, I don't think, maybe sometimes people won't think of that way because they see like the TV commercials or the stuff we put on social media or things of that nature. However, like the things that I find that are most impactful that drive our growth as far as like new clients and additional revenue and growing the firm is the relationships and the hospitality that we provide to each single client and former client who's blessed us with their trust to be their attorney. So for me, externally telling you as a client, it's like, I have such great relationships with your whole team that it's almost like when you're talking to me about doing something, it's not like you're selling me. It's just a discussion. I feel in my heart like you have my best interest at heart because we've developed a relationship before you sold anything to me. How do you agree with that? And how deep do you get into that with your team?
Can you repeat that? I was thinking of something else the whole time.
How big would you I'm going to start over. I'm a freaking lawyer. I got to run through the whole damn thing again if you make me.
I got it. I was just going back on that communicating thing we were talking about.
Touche.
Yeah.
Touche.
Right. Well, here's the thing, right? I think all transactions are based on trust, and you want to feel good about the people that you're doing business with. And so, yes, a relationship is very important because people aren't going to do business with you if they don't believe that you're going to deliver on your end of the equation.
And trust you.
And in many ways, I think I look at you and what we've done with your account and your advertising, right? Your message is all about trust, right? You come off as a very trustworthy attorney. In a very crowded space, too, from a advertising and marketing perspective. So, what are you selling? You're selling, hey, trust me because I'm going to fight for the win for you. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. We're just trying to be ourselves, but I think that the things that y'all do really well is y'all aren't. I've dealt with salespeople before who are really bad at it, and from my perspective as the person they're trying to sell something to, and the ones who are really bad at it are hard selling and pushing. And I find that with y'all and with other people that we work with as vendors who are really good, it's always relationships first, not pushy, like not pressure. They're not like, it's like, hey man, like your quota is not my problem. I'm running my business. And so like good salespeople I find work and put the time in to develop the relationship and kind of have the perspective or the mindset that like, if something comes to this, great. If it doesn't, I met an interesting person. I didn't lose. Right. Mm-hmm. So I just think your team's really good.
Yeah.
At that.
It is interesting in that, a lot of, I would say, the poorer salespeople will try to sell you what they want to sell you versus listening to what you need and then trying to find a solution that meets your need.
Right.
So it's about, selling is a consultative type approach, right? What do you need? What are you trying to accomplish? Once we understand that, then it's just a matter of finding the right tools and mix of of assets to use to help you achieve your objectives, versus me coming in and saying, "Hey, buy this package."
Yeah.
That's me. I want to sell that, or my boss wants that sold, or something like that, and that might not be what works for you.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears and talk about something much more important. I'd like to talk about the Grateful Dead. Would you?
Sure.
Do you care for that band?
My favorite band, yes.
All right. How many Dead shows have you been to? Do you know the exact number? Have you counted it?
I don't know the exact number. I mean, I know I saw the Grateful Dead, the original version, probably about 130 times.
It's a light number.
Yeah, and then I would say with all the iterations and current bands that the various members have played in, I'm certainly north of 200.
All right,
I love it. It's fantastic.
Why do you love? I really want to get the reasoning and the sales about, like, because it's tough. I guess a tough question because, like, I know my favorite live musician to see is Stapleton. It's tough for me to explain. It's just like the music, it's my thing. What makes it resonate with you so much that it became such a labor of love and passion that you've been to over 200 shows? I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, for me, it's about the songs. I mean, I love the music. I love the songs, and the reason why they're so good for a repeat customer is every time they play a song, it's different.
Yeah,
it's not
right.
It's not orchestrated and planned out. It's improvised and has a different flow, and you can hear a song tonight and then go see them again in 2 weeks and hear the same song again, and it'll be a completely different experience.
Right.
So every time is new. It's different. It's unique. They're certainly the only ones that do what they do.
Yeah. And I think I have to ask you, because you've been to so many shows, and it's a tough thing to answer, but what would you say is the best show you've ever been to?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I would usually answer that one with the last one that I saw is usually the best one.
But you've seen them in the Sphere. Is that not fair? Because it's like the Sphere.
Yeah, Dead and Company at the Sphere is totally mind-blowing. Just the sound, the graphics that they put up, it's a whole new visual experience on top of it.
But it's kind of comparing apples to oranges, right? Like, if you compare that to a live show without being in the freaking Sphere, like, it's not necessarily fair to the other venues, I think.
No, it's definitely different, and I would encourage everyone to go check it out. I mean, it's definitely unlike anything you've ever seen. I couldn't give you one. I mean, I can tell you a couple that stand out. I mean, I remember a show at Nassau Coliseum in 1990 where Branford Marsalis came out and jammed with them on the saxophone. Probably one of the all-time top shows ever. Nice. I remember my first show, Madison Square Garden, 1982. I mean, that's what hooked me the first time. So, and then I could run down a list of a whole bunch of other really good ones that I've been to.
Well, I know you love hockey, so let's talk about hockey. Your favorite hockey team is?
New York Islanders.
The New York Islanders.
I mean, that's not my favorite hockey team. That's my favorite sports team of all time. And in fact, I'm going to go with the prop bag again.
Oh, we got a prop bag. If you listen to this and not watching this, we have notes, we have wine from Italy, and now we got something.
This is for Miles, because I'm going to guess Miles does not have a hockey team.
You're kidding me. I do not.
Miles is...
So what I do is one of the things that I find Louisiana is great for recruiting hockey fans, because most people do not have allegiances down here. So I each year buy 20, 30 Islanders T-shirts and hand them out to people to recruit them as Islanders fans. So
that's incredible.
This is your signing bonus.
Okay. Is that all I'm getting?
This is all you get. You got to talk to him for any actual cash compensation.
Hey, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So
that's awesome. I really appreciate it. I'll take it.
Yes,
he's in. He's in.
So we have a new Islanders fan in the room today.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions, because you just recruited a new fan. How many fans do you think? Because I know you view everybody in Louisiana as a free agent. I was a free agent. I'm in. I'm an Islanders fan now. You recruited me. How many people do you think you've converted in Southern Louisiana to become New York Islanders fans?
I don't know. It's got to be 40, 50. I
think
mean,
it's
probably, right?
Yeah.
At least. I mean,
I'm thinking half my friends that you've recruited
Yeah.
in my head.
there's a lot of Islander shirts in Thibodeau.
It's true. My nephew, my brother, all Islanders fans now. All right. You think they're the best? I've had this session. You make the pitch to me. Tell me why the Islanders are the best professional sports team in history.
Oh, well, that's a big statement. I wouldn't know that I can go that far.
What do you believe
but
they're the best franchise in hockey? I think you think that.
They certainly did something that hasn't been done since they did it, which is win 4 straight Stanley Cups. Incredibly hard to do. I would say that's one of the toughest trophies to win in all sports. Those guys are true warriors. And not only that, they lost in the finals of the 5th round. So they won 19 consecutive playoff series. And that's a record that I don't think will ever fall. I mean,
There's also a lot of randomness to hockey. Like, much more than other sports. Like, you can be super talented but lose to a less talented team because of the way the puck moves or hits or anything like that, right? Like, so I think in context, when you think about that span, was it from 81 to 85 that they won those 4 straight, or 85 to 89?
Yeah, it was 80, 81, 82, 83.
And they won 4 Stanley Cups in a row. I mean, like, has anybody ever come close to that? I mean, maybe the Lightning. How many I'm not going to say what you
I don't
call
think we've
them
had him win more than 2 since then.
in a row.
Yeah.
So it's a tough accomplishment to
I
make.
think Edmonton maybe won 4 in 5 years. They lost 1 in between. They won 2, lost 1, 2 more.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't see that as something that will ever fall. And you're right. Hockey does have a great deal of randomness to it, and it's also a sport where, as you said, the most talented team doesn't win. You can a less skilled team can outwork a more skilled team and win.
What do you think? What are you feeling about the Islanders this year? Where are we? What's going on?
Nah.
Nah.
Yeah, it's we had a good run a couple of years ago. Went to two straight conference finals, and we're 1 game away from playing for the cup. But the team hasn't changed much since then, and I think need to get a little younger, a little faster. Definitely need some changes. So.
Sounds like a team that we're about to go into. So we're going to start this new session. Are you okay? We have a new session we call Overruled.
Yes.
And the way this session works, I'm going to make 3 statements to you. If you say overruled, you disagree. If you sustain, you agree. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm going to start with the layup so we can kind of ease you in. Miles doesn't like to just throw the guess
Don't scare the guests away.
in the wild, especially because you've been drinking wine. You got the Islanders juice flowing. All right. The New York Rangers are the worst team in pro hockey.
I'm going to say overruled, and I think that's a surprise to you.
Very big surprise. I'm shocked.
You're not asking the right question. They're the worst team in all of sports. Okay. That would be sustained if that were the question. But
Well done. All right, next one. This is going to get harder. New Orleans restaurants are better than restaurants in New York City.
New Orleans restaurants are better than restaurants in New York City. Sustained.
Whoa. I'm pretty happy right now. I thought you were going to say overruled, but I think we were number 2 behind New York City in the last food ranking list. I forgot. What was that list that came out like 6 months ago? Who wrote that?
See, I thought we were first. I thought we were 1. New York was 2.
I thought we were 2, but I'm excited that we've converted a native New Yorker to New Orleans food scene. Okay, number 3 and last. This is a hard one too. I don't know what you're going to say to this one. The New Orleans Saints, talk about a team that needs to get younger, will win 10 games or more in 2025.
I'm gonna, for selfish reasons, go with sustained on that one because a good Saints team is good for business.
All right.
So yes, let's be optimistic and hopeful and get back into the playoffs and do all that stuff.
The next question I have for you, Andy, I'm really also excited to hear your answer to because I don't know. You mentioned you think that the New Orleans food scene is better than New York City just now. What are your top 3 restaurants ranked 1, 2, 3? Your favorite, second favorite, and third favorite in New Orleans?
Okay, this is a tough question. I'm going to go with, I think, Doris.
Number 1.
Metropolitan, number 1.
That's a good choice.
Le Petit Grocery and Herb Saint.
Can't go wrong with all 3 of those.
And can I do 2 honorable mentions?
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
Gree. I
Great.
think Eric Cook does such great stuff. It's real good local food. And then, of course, our go-to place, Dala. I mean, it's fantastic.
Dala is fantastic, and also Eric has St. John open by the office here downtown. And as I think we both ran into Eric a couple weeks ago, we're telling him how, as much as I like Grigri, and I think Grigri is fantastic, I think I like St. John more just because I prefer the menu. But the same gumbo is on the menu, and I always tell Eric this, is like, I don't think there's another restaurant that I like the gumbo being from like a southern small Louisiana town and eating my grandmother's gumbos. Eric has a really good gumbo. And it's he calls it a Southwest Louisiana gumbo. So from like the Opelousas, those rural towns outside of Lafayette type recipe, but it tastes similar to the gumbo that I had growing up when my grandmother and grandparents made it.
I'm still amazed, being an outsider down here. The gumbo discussion is always interesting to listen to.
It's very heated.
Very personal choice on that one.
It all starts with the roux, and then it ends with the okra. And if you put tomatoes in it, you might as well just go to Canada.
Wait, so are you pro okra?
I don't mind the okra, but I just rather it without okra. But
Fair
people
enough.
have strong opinions about that.
Agreed.
I don't get it.
Can you put tomatoes in gumbo? I mean,
No, but people do it.
I've seen it.
I've seen people do it, and that's why I said they should just go to Canada.
That seems wrong.
If they put a tomato in a gumbo, it's absurd.
Put a tariff on that one.
We don't talk about politics here. Getting into wine. How'd you get into wine, Andy? Because you're an avid wine collector. You have brought us this. I think Lacuse was like maybe a year or two ago. Was it the #1 rated? Their 2016 Brunello, I think, was #1 or number 5 on Wine Spectator's
Yeah, it was top
wines in the
5.
world.
Might have been,
Yeah.
was it number 2 maybe?
Yeah.
Really just an outstanding. Here you go. Here's your shirt, man.
Thank you.
Take the Islander shirt, Mouse.
Yeah.
You're in. Take
You're
the
in.
bonus.
Yep.
He's in. So how'd you get into wine? What is it you like about collecting wine? You have an incredible wine collection. So maybe
I like wine because, many ways wine are like the Grateful Dead. Every bottle is different.
Touche.
Every vintage, every winery, every different varietal of grape is unique. So there's so much to explore. I got into it. I'd say really got into it when I was back in Portland. There was a great local wine shop, Great Wine Buys, run by John Kennedy, really great guy, and we would have a kind of like, instead of book club, we had wine club. So we would go down there every other month, and John would pull 6 or 8 different wines from Australia one night, and then we'd do Brunellos, and then we'd have Oregon Pinots and California, and we'd blind taste 6 or 8 wines, group of 10, 12 guys, and spend the night just exploring and talking about the different wines that we liked, and that's where you really figure out where your palate gravitates to, and that's where it really got started. So,
and over the years, you've collected some incredible wines. I've tasted a lot of them. I hate to even ask you this question, but I just really want to know the answer, and I will give you honorable mentions. Can you tell me your favorite, and our listeners, your favorite 3 vineyards? Be anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
I'm not limiting you to like California.
Again,
I'm not limiting you.
tough question, but I would say, one.
This is overruled. We asked the hard-hitting questions here, okay? This is serious business, Andy. This isn't a joke show.
There's no messing around here.
Yeah, I'm basically the male version of Christina Amanpour, if you want to get down to it. So let's.
Ooh, those lights are hot. Well, I would say the one we're having, Lacuse is a fantastic wine, and it's a beautiful winery. I mean, we've been there. It's just gorgeous. And then Lorenzo, who is the winemaker, is such a really unique, interesting man as well. And the story of, you get to see how the wine is made. And it's just super consistent. It's every time you open a bottle of this and it's going to be one of the finer wines you're going to taste.
What's interesting too, having been at that vineyard and seeing where the grapes are on that side of the mountain, and having him explain the slope and the piece of the mountain that they own, the shade that it gets at pertinent times of the year, the elevation, what that does to the particular dirt, and the different grapes that he plants in different areas. It's amazing. I've never seen like attention to like. I felt like that guy knew every piece of dirt in the ground on his family's vineyard, which has been going back for hundreds of years, maybe that their family has had that vineyard in their family and put out wines. But anywho, so Le Cusé's one.
Le Cusé's one. I would say the other two I'm going to go to Oregon on. As lived out in Oregon for 25 years, and they make some of the finest Pinot Noir in the New World. I think of one, Big Table Farm is fantastic. Really, again, cool people. Claire and Brian run it out of, it's actually a functioning farm. There's goats and cows and horses and chickens running around. And they're just really good people who make fantastic wine. And then one of my other favorites is also in Oregon is Soder. They're the ones I think you've had
It's a great wine.
They make a wonderful Brut Rosé. Soder Pop.
Soda pop.
Yes, that's one of Pam's favorites too. So,
you got any honorable mentions? Any others you want to give a shout out to for listeners who are like, I want to check some others out.
There's so many. I mean, I think of just in Oregon, Antica Terra.
Yeah,
is great. Boy, I'd have to just think through, but
it's also preference because some people like a thinner, like a Pinot Noir, or a blend. Some people like a heavier wine, a Cab or a Zin, on the red side, and then you get on the white side, and it's different preferences.
I love a Beja out of Washington is
great,
is fantastic. There's so many good wines being made up in Walla Walla.
Yep. A lot of famous people with vineyards up there too. Like people may not realize that. Like C.J. McCollum has a vineyard. I think it's something 91, Heritage 91 up in Walla Walla. Drew Bledsoe's wine is fantastic. Doubleback, really good wine. There's a lot of. I think there's probably more than that, but for some reason in that area, there's a lot of famous celebrities, people who have invested in vineyards in that area. Do you think that's? I'm curious if is it because it's difficult for them to penetrate the California market, and so there's more opportunity for people who are first-time vineyard proprietors to buy into that up there? Like,
that's a good question. I don't know the economics of it, but I would suspect that land is probably less expensive up there. I mean, I know the quality of the wines. I would say there's wines made in Walla Walla that are $75 that if they had Napa as their address would be $225
for sure.
I mean, it's the quality is that good. I think of Cayuse is a really great producer up there. It's probably the best old world style wine that's made in the New World.
Yeah,
I have a ton of that now. What I find is as I've aged, my palate's gotten a little lighter. So some of those big Syrahs and Rhone style wines, they're just huge now, and I don't. I mean, I like them; they're good, but they're just big.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's why I gravitate towards the Brunellos and the Pinots because they're a little lighter.
It's amazing you talked about all those places up there in the Northwest, and like we haven't even hit Domaine Serene, which is typically rated one of the best Pinot Noir producers in the world. We haven't even talked about Quilceda Creek, which has routinely been rated one of the best vineyards in Washington State. So it's a lot of really good places up there, and I think for some reason in the American wine market and in the consumer market, like everybody, especially like a lot of friends that I have who get into wine and start to like wine, they all start in California and they just think everything's in California, and they don't until they get educated on the quality of wine up in Oregon and Washington State. It's not like a first reflex for a lot of people in the States to go to that region. It's like straight to California.
Yes.
And in fairness, that's kind of where I went when I started drinking wine and collecting wine.
It's such a huge wine producing area. I mean, they make so much of it. And I do know the next place I want to really explore is Burgundy. Those old world Pinot Noir based wines. There's so many good ones. That's why I love going to Pluck, the wine bar.
In downtown New Orleans, another great place.
Because she has Sky, I believe Sky is the owner. She has amazing knowledge of Burgundy wines. So I love going in there and just pull me something that I'll like, and she hasn't ever missed.
I love Pluck. That's a great place if you're a wine or want to just try some wine. They're really nice people too. Yeah. It's like they don't. I find sometimes with wine people, they can be snobby and arrogant and be like, like that kind of like personality, snooty. Fair. I should have said that instead of snobby. And I don't find, like, Pluck is very friendly and welcoming, and they're, like, very excited to be like, hey, you're not really big into wine, but you want my opinion on what to try. Great. Like, they want to give you a good experience with it. That's what I kind of like about them. So, okay, we've got through the wine, but one question I wanted to make sure I ask you before we go today is, I'm curious, do you have a favorite book or two that you would recommend? Like, I always like to ask guests, it's just I'm curious of the answer.
That's
any genre.
Yeah, that's a great one too. I've been thinking of that. I think of a book that I think I've read 3 times now, The Stand by Stephen King, which is, if you haven't read, it's like 1,000 pages. It's a big one, but it's interesting. The premise is a global pandemic, and wipes out 99.6% of the population, actually released by the Department of Defense accidentally. And
when was it written?
Probably like 1980. It's just a great story of good versus evil, and triumph and dealing with hard situations. And Stephen King's such a great writer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the first thing I went to was sub in Department of Defense for China and sub in that for COVID.
Yeah, right. It's interesting. I haven't read it in probably 10 or 15 years, so probably due for a reread on it.
All right. Well, one question I have to ask. I love Andy to ask all of our guests this question is, what would you say is your superpower? So you've had, and by that I mean you've had a lot of success. Fox has, I think, the majority of the market share of the TV market in Southern Louisiana. Is considered in the rankings when you look at the metrics in your industry that it counts the number 1 TV station, has been for quite some time down here, and with all of its competitors. And so with all the success you've had managing your sales team and maintaining that between sales and the station, obviously has news and all the other pieces of a station. But what would you say is your one superpower, that one thing that you have that's a unique skill that's kind of helped you achieve some of the success that you've had professionally and personally in your life?
I would say be my demeanor. I mean, I'm a very easygoing person. I don't let lows drag me down, and I don't let highs get me overly excited. You celebrate your wins, of course, and you learn from your losses, but kind of keeping a really even-keeled demeanor throughout the day, the week, the month, the year, allows people to thrive and do what they need to do, to be empowered to make decisions.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an honorable mention on one on that. I think one of yours, too, is that you're a great listener. And I find like most people don't listen. They're like always thinking about what's the next thing I'm going to say instead of like actually listening to what the other person's saying. And I just think you're a really good listener. But I can't let you go without one ask.
Well, okay. I'm going to say we should ask Pam that one. She might disagree with you.
Oh, all right. Well, you know what? That segues perfectly into my final bonus question before we wrap this episode. So is Pam the boss? So your wife is Pam. I know Pamela very well. She's like another mom to me. Is Pam the boss?
Oh, yeah. Of course. Come on. That's a layup.
That was a layup. I had to end the show in a positive fashion.
You knew the answer to that one.
You surprised me with the New Orleans restaurant scene over New York City. This one was yeah.
Isn't that a good attorney? You don't ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Bingo, pops, bingo. All right, Andy, thank you so much for being here and talking to us about your career and about some of your passions, both the Grateful Dead and wine and the New York Islanders. You've recruited an army of Louisianans, and I have to say before we go, I get a good laugh all the time. I was in Tampa one time and I'm wearing an Islanders shirt, and I kept getting all these looks, and people were like, what is an Islanders fan doing in Tampa? And then I've had so many friends that you've recruited into your army who are wearing like an Islanders shirt in the French Quarter or an Islanders shirt uptown, and we have so many visitors in New Orleans, and people are always like, what the hell is an New York Islanders fan doing in New Orleans?
You get a random Let's Go Isles every once in a while. I love it.
Well, thank you.
Everywhere.
Thank you all for listening. This has been a great episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Once again, this has been the Overruled podcast, brought to you by the Scott Vignair Law Firm, with an incredible guest and close family friend, and basically family of mine, Mr. Andy Delaporte. Andy, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great experience.
All right. We'll see you all next time. Thanks again.
Scott Vignair, injury attorneys, we fight for the win.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.